Randolph Scott, a name synonymous with the rugged, stoic heroes of American westerns, was not just a legendary actor, but also a man who understood the silent codes of life and cinema. Few knew the personal truths behind his carefully constructed public image. In interviews and private conversations, Scott spoke candidly about the struggles of his contemporaries, including naming 6 gay actors he knew who were forced to live in secrecy in Hollywood's golden era. This revelation underscored a truth that was often hidden behind the glimmering lights of Tinseltown. The entertainment industry, glamorous as it appeared, had layers of secrecy and personal compromises. Scott, with his calm demeanor and piercing presence, managed to navigate these murky waters with dignity, becoming both a cinematic icon and a man of deep integrity. His life, marked by discipline, courage, and a sense of understated heroism, mirrored the characters he portrayed on screen. George Randolph Scott was born on January 23, 1898, in Orange County, Virginia, into a family that embodied Southern values and discipline. His father, George Grant Scott, was a certified public accountant, meticulous and principled, whose professionalism deeply influenced young Randolph. His mother, Lucille Crane Scott, ensured that manners, etiquette, and an unwavering sense of decorum were central to their home. Growing up in Charlotte, North Carolina, Randolph experienced a childhood steeped in the traditions of the South, where family reputation and personal conduct were considered paramount. He was exposed to literature, arts, and the importance of education from a young age, laying a foundation for both his intellectual curiosity and refined sensibilities. Scott's early education saw him attending the Georgia Institute of Technology, a choice that reflected both academic ambition and a desire to cultivate discipline and technical knowledge. Later, he transferred to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where his interest in drama and the arts began to blossom. Here, he participated in stage productions, honing his ability to convey emotion subtly, a skill that would, later, define his acting career. At the same time, his academic pursuits kept him grounded, balancing creativity with structure. The outbreak of World War I provided Scott with an experience that would shape his persona both on and off the screen. He enlisted in the U.S. Army and served in France as an artillery observer, a role requiring precision, patience, and courage under pressure. The horrors and discipline of war instilled in him a quiet resilience and the ability to maintain composure. In difficult circumstances, traits that would later inform his on-screen characters. Returning to civilian life, Scott faced a country transformed by the war's aftermath, yet he carried with him a sense of purpose and self-assuredness that few of his peers possessed. By the late 1920s, Scott had set his sights on Hollywood, drawn by the burgeoning motion picture industry. Los Angeles was a city of promise, where talent, appearance, and connections could transform lives overnight. Through family networks, he met Howard Hughes, a connection that opened doors to small roles in silent films. His early experiences in Hollywood were marked by perseverance and a measured approach, avoiding the pitfalls that claimed many newcomers. It was during this period that his tall, commanding figure, chiseled features, and natural poise began to draw attention, making him a candidate for larger roles in an industry hungry for a new type of leading man. Scott's initial forays into film began in the silent era with small parts in movies such as The Far Call, 1929, and The Virginia, 1929. These early roles, though minor, allowed him to understand the mechanics of film acting, from the nuances of camera work to the importance of timing and subtle expression. The transition to sound films in the early 1930s presented new challenges, but Scott's adaptability and disciplined approach served him well. Throughout the 1930s, he appeared in a variety of genres, from romantic comedies and adventure dramas to crime thrillers. This diversity not only showcased his versatility, but also allowed him to explore the spectrum of human emotion on screen. Films like The Last of the Mohicans, 1936, and Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, 1938, marked turning points, demonstrating his ability to carry a story with both physical presence and understated emotional depth. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Scott avoided flamboyance, opting instead for a restrained and dignified screen presence that would become his signature style. Hollywood during this era was a place of contrasts. Opulence and secrecy coexisted, with intense competition and personal compromise. Scott, aware of the delicate balance required to maintain both personal and professional integrity, navigated these waters carefully. He developed friendships and alliances with other actors, some of whom, like the 6 gay actors he later referenced, had to conceal their true identities to survive in an industry that was not yet ready to embrace diversity in its many forms. By the late 1930s, Scott was increasingly recognized not just for his talent, but also for the reliability he brought to each project. Directors and producers knew they could count on him to deliver performances that were subtle yet compelling, infusing his characters with a sense of moral clarity and quiet determination. This reputation paved the way for his eventual specialization in westerns, where his stoic demeanor and commanding presence would find a natural and lasting home. The 1940s and 1950s marked the period when Randolph Scott truly became an icon of the western genre. Unlike the flamboyant or larger-than-life personas of some of his contemporaries, Scott brought a restrained, introspective quality to his roles. Audiences connected with his portrayal of the solitary cowboy, a figure defined by personal honor, moral certainty, and emotional restraint. Over 3 decades, he appeared in more than 100 films, with over 60 of them being westerns, a testament to both his enduring appeal and the genre's reliance on his unique screen presence. Key collaborations with director Bud Betticher and screenwriter Burt Kennedy in the 1950s produced a series of films that are now considered masterpieces of the Western genre. 7 Men from Now, 1956, The Tall T, 1957, Ride Lonesome, 1959, and Comanche Station, 1960, showcased Scott at the height of his artistic powers. These films were characterized by minimalist storytelling, psychological depth, and moral complexity, setting them apart from the more action-oriented westerns of the era. Scott's performances were central to their success. He conveyed emotion and ethical clarity without relying on melodrama, allowing audiences to engage with the inner life of his characters. The westerns of this period were more than entertainment. They were explorations of human character, societal norms, and personal integrity. Scott often portrayed men who had experienced loss, faced danger, and navigated a harsh, often lawless world with resilience and principle. Unlike other stars whose characters relied on bravado and showmanship, Scott's cowboy was measured, thoughtful, and morally unyielding. This distinction not only set him apart, but also influenced subsequent generations of actors and filmmakers who sought to imbue their own work with similar depth and authenticity. Financially astute, Scott complemented his acting career with savvy, investments in oil, real estate, and other ventures. These endeavors afforded him the freedom to select roles that aligned with his artistic vision rather than being driven solely by financial necessity. His careful cultivation of both his public persona and private life allowed him to maintain a sense of control in an industry known for its unpredictability and pressures. By the early 1960s, Scott was ready to retire, closing his career with Ride the High Country, 1962, directed by Sam Peckinpah. This film, in which he starred alongside Joel McCrea, reflected themes of aging, morality, and the twilight of an era, both for the Old West and for Scott himself. It was a fitting conclusion to a career marked by consistency, integrity, and quiet heroism, leaving behind a legacy that would define the Western genre for decades. What made Randolph Scott compelling was not simply his physical presence, but the depth of his characters' internal lives. He conveyed strength, moral clarity, and vulnerability through subtle gestures and restrained dialogue. His heroes were often men who had experienced hardship, understood responsibility, and operated according to a personal code that transcended circumstance. Unlike contemporaries such as John Wayne, whose larger-than-life bravado defined their roles, Scott offered audiences a more introspective portrayal of masculinity. His characters were believable, nuanced, and relatable, reflecting the complex realities of frontier life. This understated approach extended off-screen as well. Scott was known for his discretion, professionalism, and loyalty to colleagues. He valued integrity over publicity, choosing to cultivate meaningful relationships rather than courting fame through scandal or spectacle. Scott's acumen extended beyond acting. Through careful investments in oil, real estate, and other ventures, he secured financial independence that allowed him to retire on his own terms. This combination of talent, discipline, and business savvy contributed to his lasting legacy, ensuring that his contributions to cinema would be remembered not only for their artistry, but also for the dignity with which he lived his life. Randolph Scott's final performance in Ride the High Country served as a poignant reflection of both his career and the Western genre itself. Acting alongside Joel McCrea, Scott portrayed an aging lawman confronting the end of an era, a narrative mirrored in his own retirement from Hollywood. This swan song encapsulated the themes of resilience, morality, and quiet heroism that had defined his work for decades. Beyond his filmography, Scott's legacy lies in his embodiment of a unique brand of masculinity and integrity. He navigated Hollywood with discretion, loyalty, and an unwavering sense of principle, earning the respect of both colleagues and audiences. His work influenced generations of actors and filmmakers, demonstrating that understated performances could resonate as powerfully as those driven by spectacle. In a world often dominated by glamour and controversy, Randolph Scott's life and career remind us that authenticity, discipline, and inner strength leave a lasting impact. Through more than 100 films and a persona that blended stoicism with moral clarity, he remains an enduring symbol of the American West and a benchmark for cinematic excellence. Randolph Scott was famously private about his personal life, a trait that complemented his on-screen stoicism. Despite his fame, he preferred to keep his family, friendships, and romantic life out of the tabloids. While Hollywood in the 1940s and 1950s thrived on gossip and scandal, Scott maintained a level of discretion that was rare among stars of his stature. This privacy allowed him to navigate relationships with fellow actors and colleagues without unnecessary interference, fostering trust and loyalty. Scott never married, and although rumors about his romantic life occasionally surfaced, he remained largely inscrutable to the public. He formed close bonds with a select circle of friends, many of whom were part of the Hollywood elite, including actors, directors, and screenwriters. Within this inner circle, Scott was known for his generosity, sense of humor, and unwavering loyalty. Colleagues often remarked that working with him was a masterclass in professionalism, as he combined talent, patience, and a quiet authority that made the set run smoothly. One of the more striking aspects of Scott's personal life was his awareness and compassion regarding the struggles of others. He recognized the challenges faced by actors who had to hide their sexual orientation due to societal and industry pressures. His acknowledgement of 6 gay actors who had to live in secret is a testament to his understanding of Hollywood's hidden realities. By speaking about their experiences, he revealed a depth of empathy that contrasted sharply with the tough, stoic characters he portrayed on screen. This insight highlights Scott's moral compass and his ability to see beyond appearances, appreciating the human complexity that often goes unnoticed in the glare of fame. Hollywood during Scott's era was glamorous, yet unforgiving. Behind the glitz, actors faced intense scrutiny, and personal choices were often dictated by the demands of studios and public expectation. Scott witnessed these dynamics firsthand and navigated them with an admirable sense of balance. His discretion, regarding colleagues' private lives, particularly those of gay actors forced to conceal their identities, illustrates his understanding of both loyalty and survival in an industry dominated by image. Studios held immense power over their stars, dictating roles, public appearances, and even personal conduct. Many actors who resisted these pressures faced career setbacks or scandal. Scott, however, managed to maintain autonomy by choosing roles strategically, investing wisely, and cultivating a reputation for professionalism. His ability to remain unaffected by gossip or interference allowed him to focus on his craft, resulting in a career defined by consistency and quality rather than controversy. The secrecy and social pressures of Hollywood also influenced how Scott approached his relationships with co-stars and directors. He developed a reputation for honesty and reliability, becoming a confidant for those navigating similar challenges. His awareness of industry politics and human vulnerabilities added an additional layer to his persona, both on and off the screen. In many ways, Scott's career exemplifies how discretion, respect for others, and moral clarity can coexist with fame, allowing for both personal integrity and professional success. Randolph Scott's contributions to cinema extended beyond his own performances. His portrayal of morally grounded, introspective cowboys influenced countless actors who sought to emulate his style. The restrained hero archetype he perfected contrasted sharply with the more flamboyant personas prevalent at the time, providing an alternative model of masculinity and integrity. Actors like Clint Eastwood and Robert Mitchum drew inspiration from Scott's ability to communicate depth and emotion with minimal dialogue, proving that less can indeed be more in cinematic storytelling. Scott's influence also reshaped the Western genre itself. While many Westerns prior to the 1940s focused on spectacle, gunfights, and overt heroics, Scott's films emphasized psychological complexity, ethical dilemmas, and minimalist storytelling. Collaborations with directors such as Bud Bettisher brought a new level of sophistication to Westerns, transforming them into character-driven narratives. This shift encouraged subsequent filmmakers to explore subtler themes within the genre, enriching the cinematic landscape and ensuring the enduring relevance of Scott's body of work. Beyond genre influence, Scott's professionalism became a standard for aspiring actors. His commitment to preparation, discipline, and collaboration created a blueprint for sustainable success in Hollywood. Many actors credited him not only for his artistry but also for demonstrating how personal integrity and career longevity could coexist in a demanding industry. Scott's legacy thus encompasses both the art of acting and the ethics of professional conduct, making him a figure of enduring respect and admiration. Though not as flamboyantly decorated as some contemporaries, Scott received considerable recognition for his contributions to cinema. His peers admired him for his consistent performances, and critics often praised the depth and authenticity he brought to each role. Over time, film historians and Western aficionados began to acknowledge Scott's unique impact on the genre, highlighting his collaborations with Bettisher and Kennedy as milestones in cinematic storytelling. Scott's enduring appeal is evident in retrospectives and film festivals celebrating classic Westerns. While he did not actively seek awards, the respect of his peers and the critical acclaim of his films established him as an essential figure in Hollywood history. Today, his work is studied in film schools and remains a reference point for actors, exploring the art of subtle, morally grounded performances. After retiring in the early 1960s, Scott enjoyed a quiet, private life, largely removed from Hollywood's public eye. He continued to manage his investments, traveling and spending time with close friends and family. Retirement offered him the freedom to reflect on a career that had spanned over 3 decades and more than 100 films, with over 60 Westerns, that defined an era. Even in retirement, Scott's influence persisted. Filmmakers and actors continued to cite his work as an example of excellence, and the westerns of his golden years remained staples of American cinema. His life, marked by discipline, integrity, and discretion, offered lessons about balancing fame with personal principles. By maintaining his dignity and prioritizing meaningful relationships, Scott ensured that his legacy was defined not only by cinematic achievements, but also by the way he lived his life. Randolph Scott passed away quietly, leaving behind a body of work that remains timeless. His performances continue to captivate audiences, reflecting a blend of stoicism, vulnerability, and moral clarity that few actors have ever achieved. In both life and art, Scott exemplified the enduring power of integrity, proving that true greatness often lies in subtlety, quiet strength, and unwavering principles. Randolph Scott's career was marked not just by the roles he played, but by the relationships he cultivated within Hollywood. In an industry often defined by rivalry and fleeting alliances, Scott maintained enduring friendships that reflected his loyalty and integrity. He worked closely with directors like Bud Betticher and screenwriter Burt Kennedy, developing a creative rapport that transformed a series of westerns into masterpieces of minimalist storytelling. These collaborations were built on mutual respect, with Scott valuing directors who allowed him to explore nuance and subtlety in his performances. Scott also formed close bonds with fellow actors, many of whom relied on his discretion and understanding. Within Hollywood's tightly knit circles, he became a confidant for actors navigating the pressures of fame, societal expectations, and studio politics. His awareness of colleagues' personal struggles, including those forced to conceal their sexual orientation, further highlighted his empathetic nature. These friendships were not mere professional convenience. They reflected genuine human connection, built on trust and shared experiences in a demanding environment. Though not widely publicized, Scott contributed quietly to charitable causes throughout his life. He believed in giving back without seeking recognition, reflecting the humility that characterized both his personal and professional life. Scott supported veterans organizations, reflecting his respect for military service shaped by his experiences in World War I. He also contributed to educational initiatives and arts programs, demonstrating his belief in nurturing talent and opportunity for future generations. These philanthropic